When you have a sibling, you should be able to trust them with your most intimate secrets. Well, I can't do that with my sister, and the reason is she's going to tell my father about my sexuality. And if she does that, I'm not going to become the COO of the company, because my father will disown me. So what does she do? She holds that over my head for many years to come, and guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it gets pretty dirty. So I decide to fight back. People, family included, would always exploit you when you push, comes to shove. I grew up in a very religious family and community. I'm the second daughter and child of my parents, and I have an older sister, Teresa. She's older than me by just a year. My father owned a real estate company, and my mother was a major stakeholder there. In fact, my father owes my mother more than that because she had used her influence as the daughter of a very wealthy man to establish his firm. My father had always set high standards for me and my sister to meet. His high sense of morality made sure everybody around him behaved themselves. This meant that neither my sister nor I could engage with the guy in what my father called immoral. So I got admitted into college a year after my sister, and my parents had me stay with her. I got to school and discovered my sister was like me in the sense that she was not a fan of religion, but I equally noticed that we were different when it comes to being goal-oriented. It was not long after I began to stay with her that I started to frequent nightclubs. I felt out of place during my first visit there, but with time it felt right. However, there were certain boundaries that I did not cross. My sister and I would go clubbing, and I would be made to go home instead of going back with some guy to his place. You see, some of her male friends began to really pick an interest in me. She would sometimes return home and me some parcel which she claimed were from a secret admirer. Well, yeah, but I would just decline the gifts with an excuse that I was not interested, as dating a guy would stand in the way of my academics. I know you might be wondering how a girl who went clubbing on weekends still took her studies seriously. Well, that is because I believe there should be a balance to everything. I kept a healthy social life and my academics did not suffer. Teresa finally stopped trying to get me hitched with some guy after I had repeatedly turned down their advances. The only person she ever saw me with was Anna, my study buddy. The semester was over, I called home and told my parents that I wanted to stay back in school and prepare for the new semester. My father, in particular, was pleased with the fact that I was willing to pay the price to get ahead of my peers. My sister, she went back home for the holidays, and I did not know that she would be returning soon, as she could not be herself when she was at home. Teresa showed up at our apartment in school a week before resumption. I was busy inside, and the door was not shut, so she just pushed it in and walked inside herself. I said that I was busy, right? Well, I was busy clinging tight to the head of my study buddy, which was buried beneath my thighs, while my eyes were shut as I lived in the moment. Yeah, you heard it right. I was having that moment with Anna. I've never been attracted to boys, and I felt it was because of the environment where I grew up. However, I discovered when I got to college that I was free to live however I wanted, and, that the attraction for the opposite gender that was flocking around me was still not there. I thought that there was something wrong with me, and I did not disclose this to anybody. It was when I began to get close to Anna that the truth about my sexuality, which I did not want to admit, began to find expression. Okay, back to the story though. Anna and I immediately and abruptly ended our session, as we had my sister exclaimed. It was really embarrassing, and we could not make any excuse. How could we explain away what was right in front of my sister's eyes? Anna picked up her clothes and left the room, and while, I just bowed my head in shame, Teresa and I stayed silent for a while before she shifted her focus on something else entirely. Wow. My sister's silence on what she had witnessed was disturbing, and I decided to talk to her later about it. My goal was to buy her silence, no matter the cost, but Teresa just glossed over the matter. She did not seem interested and told me that it's my life, and I was not answerable to her anyways. I know that at this point you would be wishing for a sister like mine, but you might have a change of mind when I'm done. Teresa started to slave me afterward. She did not call it that, but that's exactly what it was. She had made me do her school assignments, not minding the fact that I was her junior for by a year. She did not threaten me with what she knew, but I just felt indebted to her. Well, things did not go as great as I thought they would for her. She would have me do most of her assignments, and that required research, but she could not get me to write her exams for her. So, she graduated from college with a very terrible result. My father wanted to explode. He questioned what she had been doing all along and said that he just wasted his hard-earned money to send her to school. He was so mad at my sister to the point that he refused to bring her in as an employee of the company, which, by the way, he owned. My father said my sister's results did not qualify her for the last position in the firm. It took weeks of pleading from my mother to finally soften my dad, and even when he gave her the job, it was not that kind of dignified position which my sister would have liked. My father turned the heat on me. He asked me to never come home if, what I had to show for the 5 years I spent in college was as bad as a result as hers. Well, I surpassed my sister by far. My result was excellent and my father was pleased. He announced to my mom that me and Teresa, that he was not just going to bring me to the company, but he would make me the new COO. If you know how big my father's firm is where we live, then you would know the level of honor at being the COO of the company would confer on me. I was happy and getting ready to resume work when my sister came to my room that evening. I felt she wanted to congratulate me for my latest win, but she simply said that I could not take the job. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said that she meant exactly what she just said. So I got the why part, and Teresa said that I was not deserving of the position, which my father had decided to place me in. I could sense the jealousy, so I told her that our father was the one to determine who was deserving of whatever position, and, he deemed me worthy to be the next leader, so any other opinion was not really important. My sister then asked if my father would still see me as deserving if he learned that I was not into boys. I'm into girls. The question sounded more like a threat, and that is what it was because Teresa swore that she was going to tell him the moment I assumed office. Well, I was speechless and did not know what to say. The door of my room suddenly flung open and our mother walked inside. She asked if everything was all right, and she had heard the both of us raising our voices. Teresa said everything was fine, and I had to join in on the lie. I felt terrible. How could I tell my father that I did not want anybody in my position? I would kill for it. I was left with no other option because I could not risk my family learning about my sexuality. I went into my parents' room later that evening and told my father that I had something important to say. Both he and Mom, who were lying down on their bed, sat up and looked at me with curiosity. I thanked my father for trying to reward me with the position of COO for my good grades, but I noted that I simply was not interested. So my father looked surprised at me and asked my reasoning for declining the offer. I obviously could not tell him the truth, so I told him it's because I was trying to protect his image in the eyes of his staff. He looked puzzled at me and asked me to explain what I meant. Well, I told him that although he had the right to take whatever decision he deemed fit, and was not answerable to anybody, the decision to make me the COO could be seen as favoritism. So I told my father that I wanted to start from the bottom, and work my way up, the same level as my sister, and just work to the top, so that nobody would tie my success to my father's influence. My father did not say anything. He just dismissed me, and I got to my room and my sister Teresa was already waiting there for me again. She asked if I had informed my father of my desire not to take up the position. I told her what had transpired, and she was not satisfied. She then warned me that no matter what I did, I was not to assume that office even if our father tried to enforce it on me. Teresa walked out of my room, and I just lay frustrated on my bed. It felt really bad to be indebted to someone. We were having breakfast the next morning when my mother asked Teresa if she was aware that I had expressed my desire to not take on the job. Teresa immediately gasped in surprise and asked me what my reasoning could possibly be. Gosh, it was the hypocrisy for me. I told her that I felt it was best for me to start working my way up to the top, because I did not want just anybody in the company, trying to belittle my success. Teresa said that there was nothing wrong if I accepted the post, and she even urged me to consider the offer while it was still on the table. I knew all of what she was saying. It was just an act, and if I made the mistake of accepting the offer, she would leak my secret, so I maintained my ground. Our father had been quietly taking his tea and acting like he was not paying any attention to our discussion. Finally, I spoke. He said that he was, going to grant my wish, not forcing me to assume the office, but because I did not take the offer when it came, he would put it as a contest between my sister and me. Our father said that he was going to watch our performance over time. Whoever does the best would now become the new COO of the company. I did not object. At least my secret is safe for now. Unless my sister says otherwise, of course. Ugh. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Man, blackmail is never fun. Can you guys imagine being in OP's position and just having to hide who you truly love so you can get a high-up position? A lot of the comments said that OP should have just came clean with her parents and, their response might not have been what she thought it would have been. Let me know in the comment section down below what you would have done. Guys, if you're new to the channel, go ahead, subscribe to it if you want daily videos, and yes, I do have multiple updates for you, 4 action-packed updates. Guys, let's hop into the first one. Update number 1. Hey, I'm back after such a long time. I never thought I would be back on here, but yet here I am. Thank you for leaving the comments on my first post. My sister's seriously getting on my nerves, and I fear that I will explode one of these days. We were both in the marketing department, but as you well know, I would have been her superior if she did not get me to take up the COO post down. Our job in marketing department is basically to canvas for clients and bring up strategic ways to convince them. It requires hard work and a lot of brainstorming. But yet, Teresa, she left everything for me. She would not make any meaningful suggestions, and she would not join me in trying to follow them up till they invested, and we've been on the job for 3 years, and I've had to endure her laziness, which I could not report to my father because she had something on me. We have had a little success in getting prospective clients to invest in us for the past 6 months, and our father is on our necks. So, he called us to his office and noted that he was not happy with our recent performance. He asked us to buckle up or we might be moving to some other position which would be even less desirable. Teresa and I were team leaders of the group of marketeers under us, and so I suggested right there that we split the group so my sister and I could oversee them separately, and see if we could be more productive. My father welcomed the idea and gave the go-ahead. Teresa knows that it definitely exposed her lousiness, and she was angry at me. She confronted me immediately after we left our dad's office and accused me of trying to paint her into a bad light in front of others to get on our father's good book simply because I wanted the post of our father that he set as the prize. To be honest, that has not even crossed my mind. I told her it was not my intention, and she asked me to prove it by going back to tell our father that it was actually a bad idea. I was not happy with the way that she was taking advantage of me, and I told her that. Teresa didn't care. She looked at me and told me that she would let my secret out to the world without giving it a second thought, if my suggestion made her look bad. To cut a long story short, I did not execute the idea. Teresa and I went back to my father and told him that it was not working and it was best that we all worked as a team. He did not argue. He just emphasized that we came up with results soon enough. So I managed to get prospective clients Mr. Thompson. He's young, he's handsome, and he's rich. We agreed on a day when he would visit the firm so we could further discuss the plan that the firm had laid out for the investors. Mr. Thompson finally came to the firm, and my father was present at the meeting, and I don't know if any other person noticed the way Teresa was just trying to get the guy's attention. Our prospective rich client promised to invest a whopping sum of $5 million, but we have not heard from him for 3 weeks. My father was not going to let a would-be client with such money slip from our finger, so he called my sister and me to seek our opinion on which direction to take as our client was dragging his feet. I suggested to my father that he was to send some representation to reach out to him and know the situation. So my father immediately tasked me with the responsibility of gathering a team of 3 people to reach out to Mr. Thompson. Surprisingly, Teresa suggested it was the wrong idea. For the first time, she was taking the lead in an idea generation. She noted that sending such a number of delegates could be perceived as mounting too much pressure on him, and that could make him pull back. She suggested that she goes on behalf of the company. Our father turned to me and asked what I thought about it, and I noted that it was a good idea. I mean, it could be foolish of me not to side with my sister. Teresa was allowed to go to Mr. Thompson's steel company, but it was supposed to be the next day. She objected by saying she was free that day, and it would be perfect. Nonsense! Her busybody was just seeking to get Mr. Thompson's attention. My father gave his permission, and she zoomed off after applying her makeup. The only time in all 3 years that she was actually motivated to work was when a rich young bachelor was involved. We were all expecting positive news from her, but she came back with the hour looking very gloom. So I asked how the meeting had gone, and she said Mr. Thompson was just a time waster who never intended to invest in our firm. Teresa was in no mood to give details to me, but I was curious just to see, what she would tell our father when she stood before him, because there had to be some form of justification to the accusation that she had made about him not being a serious prospect. So Teresa enters our father's office, and everybody was shocked when my father screamed my name and demanded my presence. We all knew something was very wrong. So I get to my father's office to find Teresa with her arms folded looking up to me. Our father, he redirected his anger at and he said that my sister had probably messed the whole thing up and he was holding me accountable because I've suggested that we let her go alone to see the client. Well, Teresa surprisingly transferred the blame to me. She said that I was to blame because if I had vetted Mr. Thompson properly, I would have discovered his unwillingness to partner with us from the get-go. Why did she not realize that he was not a serious person when she was busy seeking his attention? Honestly, if I had a gun right there with me, I would have pulled it out and hit my sister right there on the spot. I responded by saying that there was no way a man who was that rich and understood the value of time would make me, leave his business and come all the way to our firm when he was unwilling. Our father immediately screamed, "Exactly what I told her!" I had a lot to say to my sister, but I decided not to fan my father's flame that was already burning towards her. I promised my father that I would reach out to Mr. Thompson and see how I could remedy the situation. The moment we left our father's office, my sister asked me to keep showing off and see the level of trouble I would find myself in. It's been a week after the whole incident, and I would be going to see Mr. Thompson soon in the hopes that I could properly understand what had actually happened and try to convince him to invest in our firm. I'll update you guys. Updates number 2. The very scene from the past replayed itself again. Just today, my father stated his desire to make the new chief operating officer of the firm. It's going to be me, and my sister is not happy about it. So I visited Mr. Thompson as I noted in my last update, and I was kept at the reception for a very long time, under the guise that Thompson was in a series of meetings. But I can tell you for sure that it was a delayed tactic, just to send me away because we sometimes employ that method too. Well, I was not deterred. I waited for about 4 hours, and that was when I was given access to him. He was brief and straight to the point, and the moment I walked into his office, he said that he hoped that I had not been sent again to come and seduce him into partnering with us. Well, that statement threw me off, because, if you work in our sector, you'll discover that it's not uncommon for companies to send out female reps to male clients. But this is not to seduce them, at least not for us, but it was because men are, well, most of the time, malleable and easily persuaded by a lady. I gave a friendly hello and said I've been sent by the company in a bid to know his grievances, which had changed his mind about partnering with us, so we could take that into consideration while relating to our future clients. Mr. Thompson, he immediately began to make flirtatious comments, but I tried to steer the conversation away from where, well, he wanted to take it and keep it professional. I sat across from him, but he stood up from his seat, came to where I was, and sat on the table. He then said that he was going to make the investment immediately if I agreed to go out with him. I wasted no time in turning him down. I was there for professional reasons, and besides, I don't date guys. I did not state that second part, though, obviously. Well, Thompson stood up and walked back to his seat and said that if the first delegate whom he had sent had behaved the way I did, then he would have gone from the prospective client to actual client by now. How else did my sister behave when she came? I wondered. I noted that I was lost, and he said my sister had come in the name of the company, too. However, the way that she acted with the seductive gestures at him, one would wonder who she was actually advertising for. He said he had traveled out of town for 2 weeks and had no mind to invest upon his return. He claimed that he had returned and was about to reach out to us when my sister showed up. Mr. Thompson was apparently offended by my sister's display and asked her to leave while stating that he was looking to do real business with real firms, not a hookup agency. Well, this was shocking, very shocking, but it made sense because we all knew how excited and desperate that she was to be the only delegate assigned to see Mr. Thompson. I noted that my sister had acted on her own and not in line with the directives. I went ahead to assure him that the matter would be dealt with internally and tried to pacify him into reconsidering. Mr. Thompson is not really a difficult person per se. He said that he would partner with us and asked me to set the paperwork in motion. That was a mission complete. I was about to leave, so I thanked him and once again apologized on behalf of Teresa. Mr. Thompson noted that it's fine, and although my sister was indeed a very pretty lady, he was gay and secretly engaged to his longtime lover. Wow! What a discovery! I felt somehow glad to see somebody who was like me and proud of it, not afraid of being judged for who he was. So, I get back to the office, where everybody was anxiously waiting, and I broke the news to our father that we had just secured a new client, and he was super pleased. He immediately called my sister and told her that I had fixed what she had almost messed up. Teresa was visibly not happy about it. Our father then turned to me and asked what had actually happened. Well, I told him that Mr. Thompson had just come back from town when Teresa went to see him, and he was in talks with 2 other companies who wanted him to invest heavily. So he had a hard time coming to conclusion, and so he dismissed her. But after I had pitched the idea all over again, he felt convinced, and we were the right people for the job. Our father was really impressed. He immediately noted that he would be celebrating his 62nd birthday next week, and then he would obviously name me as the new COO of the company. Well, Teresa stormed out of his office in anger, and she went straight home without talking to anybody. I know she's obviously offended that I seemed painting myself in glory, but if she knew I saved her butt by not telling our father that she was the cause that we almost lost the client, she would be more than appreciative. I would try to talk to her when I get home, but I just hope that she understands I cannot give my father the same excuse that I gave him 3 years ago, when the post was offered to me again. I actually want the post because I feel that I've earned it, and my father would not take an excuse this time around. Update number 3. The worst experience of my life has just taken place. No, thanks to my sister, my father has just disowned me. I don't feel sorry for me though, please. Because I'm now free to live my life without being bothered about what somebody else thinks or says. This update's coming just a week after the last one. After Teresa had angrily left the office, she did not go straight home. We were all at the house when she walked in. Our father scolded her for her jealousy displayed earlier that day, and I was scared all along that she was going to expose my secret right then and there. Well, but she did not. I approached her the next morning and tried to explain myself. I wanted to make her understand that I was going to take the promotion and I needed her to not threaten me with my sexuality. I'd barely finished when Teresa asked me to take the job. She said that she was wrong to have made me give up 3 years ago. I was surprised and asked her to bring back Teresa where she had kept her because this was not Teresa I was speaking with. She smiled and said that she was truly sorry to have held it against me. Teresa did not stop there. She went ahead to apologize to my father for her display at the office and even offered to oversee the organization of his party. So, the day of the event came and it was a glamorous one. My dad's friends and business associates were there, and some people from church, and even Thompson, who was on the verge of becoming the latest investor. Well, Teresa avoided him like the absolute plague. The time came and our father made the announcement that I was now the CEO of the company. As expected, there was a massive round of applause. Congratulations were in order, and Teresa decided to make a toast. She called for everybody's attention, and that's when I, felt the drama. It started to come. She said she was dedicated to the toast of me and the hard work and noted that I truly deserved the position. She then said that I had admirable, inviolable qualities that she was sure my wife would be lucky. Well, everybody gasped and thought that she had probably committed a grammatical blunder. But she went ahead to say that she had only hoped her wife would be as hardworking and dedicated as I am. You should have seen the reaction of the folks from the church and my father's colleagues. My moment of glory had just been turned into nothing more than shame. I could not defend myself, and I just bowed my head with tears streaming down from my eyes. Our father could not hide his shock and disgust. He asked if it was true. I cried. He immediately announced right then and there on the spot that I was fired, and equally disowned and never to be referred to as his daughter. I ran out of the event hall, and one person came after me. Thompson. Yeah, I call him Thompson now because we're close. He sympathized with me, and noted that he used to be in the exact same place that I am now. He assured me that I would be all right if I stopped to seek the validation of others. I stayed at Thompson's place for a while, and my mother frantically called my phone. I finally picked up the phone and thinking that she was going to cut my head off, but she only asked where I was. She drove down to Thompson's place, and he gave us privacy. I did not know how to face her, but she just hugged me and said that I was her daughter and she would always love me. I cried. My mom then said that I've made the mistake of hiding in fear for a long time and letting my sister take advantage of me. She expressed her disappointment that Teresa, who was supposed to be there for me, had used my sexuality to deprive me of something good for the second time. So, I looked at my mother in surprise. She smiled and said that she had known about it, all about my sexuality, and it was confirmed when she had the threats which Teresa had made 3 years ago. Oh, she said she had anxiously waited for me to just open up to her, and she was willing to back me up. She informed me that our father, should I even refer to him as Dad, had made Teresa the new COO instead of me. Well, she was curious as to why Thompson had shown care, and I brought up the fact that, he's gay. My mother asked me to call Thompson to the parlor, and I did. She immediately told him that she was not in support of what her husband had done, and how, her religion had made him become. She went ahead to say that she had advised me to start up my own real estate firm, and it would be an honor for me to have him as my first client. Thompson smiled. He was impressed by the fact that my mother accepted me for who I was. He promised to wait till I was done with the legal procedures and then invest. My mother looked at me and smiled. This woman meant it when she said she had my back. Thompson planned on personally visiting my used-to-be father to state the reason why he had declined partnering with them in the first place, and the reason why he was no longer going to. I'm in touch with my mom, and I cannot wait for her to get back to me with the news of her husband's reaction to Teresa's display of promiscuousness, and to the fact that I now have my own firm whose first client is Thompson. Final mini update. Update for... Hey guys, I'm just here for a very, very short update. I just want to thank you. So, my mom spilled the beans and told Dad about what Teresa did when she had gone to see Thompson. Dad immediately kicked Teresa out of his company and even thought about disowning her too. But she was begging him on her knees that, well, he takes pity on her and leave with a warning. I'm just still happy that she has to find a job for herself. Dad has not contacted me yet, and I'm working towards my goals, and I'm absolutely thrilled to tell you that I'm doing great. Guys, thank you for reading and supporting me. First of all, I want to do a giant shout out to Thompson, Mr. Thompson. Without Mr. Thompson, this story would have not have had such a good ending. And by good ending, I mean OP landing on her feet after she was betrayed by her sister, betrayed by her father, and the only person who stuck with her was her own mom. But even the mom kinda refused to stand up in public. She didn't really want anything to do with the dad, and, well, OP was able to start her own firm. She was able to get her first client being Mr. Thompson, and that gave her a little bit of an advantage. Guys, I want to know what you would have done in this situation if you find yourself in OP's shoes, because this story, it was a lot to handle. A lot of betrayal by the families, and it just seemed like there was no end in sight. My name is Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every day, and if you guys want to be a part of them, all you have to do is subscribe, and yes, it does help support the channel. Click that button, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.